Hey everyone, today we're diving into another heartbreaking case called Love Under Compulsion. A broken vase can never be fully mended, they say. It's a symbol of harm that can't be undone. A fragile piece may be put back together, but the cracks remain, forever changing its appearance and use. This analogy resonates deeply with survivors of intimate exploitation. For a long time, society has tried to minimize the pain of such experiences to avoid discomfort, but things are changing. Our culture and legal systems have progressed, and those who have suffered now find a voice, sharing their stories and receiving the help they deserve, often driven by tragedies too significant to ignore. One such case is the tragic story of Antonia Barra from Chile. Her loss shook the entire nation, and the community came together, ensuring justice for her. Her story came to light on October 13, 2019, a day her family could never have imagined would end in such grief. Her sister, Carla, was visiting their parents' home. She went upstairs to greet Antonia, expecting a normal chat, but finding her apparently asleep, Carla decided not to disturb her. She started to leave when Antonia asked about their mother and requested the light be turned off. After telling Carla she loved her, Antonia turned away. Carla thought she was just tired or not in the mood to talk, unaware of the dark thoughts weighing on her sister's mind. By 7 p.m., their mother, noticing no response from Antonia's room, entered and found a heartbreaking scene. Her daughter was hanging lifeless. Marcela rushed to her side, but it was too late. In a state of shock, she called neighbors for help. Family friends assisted in taking down the body and contacted emergency services. Not long after, Alejandro Barra, Antonia's father, spoke to the media, pledging to uncover the reasons behind his daughter's tragic decision and to seek justice. Antonia was known for her lively spirit and intelligence. It was clear that something deeply troubling had affected her. The autopsy confirmed death by self-strangulation. Her case demanded swift action. Her parents didn't wait for the authorities. They launched their own investigation, hiring private detectives to carefully piece together the final days of Antonia's life, identifying the person who pushed her to despair. Alejandro and Marcela wasted no time reporting Martin Perdinas to the authorities. They suspected him of exploitation. Very little is known about him. He was born and raised in Temuco, Chile, the same city as Antonia. He came from a large family, including his parents, a sister, and a brother. The details of his family dynamics remain unclear, as there is limited information available online, which becomes understandable later. During his youth, a young woman named Daniela Alvarez gave birth to his child. However, their relationship did not last long after the baby was born. They parted ways. Detectives discovered that between 2015 and 2017, Antonia and Martin interacted through social media at the time. Antonia was still a teenager. They exchanged messages and commented on each other's photos. Their relationship was mostly online, but eventually they met in person, which led to the tragic events that followed. Antonia was born in the late 1980s into a tight-knit family. The Barra family lived in a spacious home, perfect for their size. Loving parents Alejandro and Marcela raised 5 children, 4 daughters and 1 son. The house was filled with care and attention. The children were kind, well-behaved, and caused no major trouble. Among her siblings, Antonia stood out. She was remarkably perceptive, responsible, and ambitious from an early age, which made her a particular source of pride for her parents. She excelled in school, got along well with her teachers, and had big plans for the future. Antonia dreamed of traveling and living a fulfilling life. After high school, she got into her dream university, choosing a popular major as a freshman. She focused on mastering the basics of her future career while actively participating in social and academic activities. She made many new friends who shared her goals and dreams. Antonia formed a special friendship with Consuela Uri, a law student. The two friends often went shopping, attended parties, and spent a lot of time together. When Antonia broke up with her boyfriend Rodrigo, Consuela encouraged her to distract herself from the sadness. Still heartbroken from the breakup, Antonia welcomed her friend's idea. She wanted to clear her mind and escape her past. The friends planned a trip for Chile's Independence Day on September 18th. They headed to the tourist town of Pucón by pure coincidence. It was there that Antonia and Martin's paths crossed again. Martin had plans to attend an electronic music festival at a local club called Black Room, where a DJ friend of his was performing on September 17th. Around 6:30 p.m., Uribe, Berra, and three other friends, including Consuela's boyfriend, set off for Pucan. The trip was smooth, and once there, the group split up to stay in different accommodations. The girls stayed at a summer house owned by Consuela's family. After 8 p.m., they began preparing for a party at Black Room, a popular spot. The night was expected to be full of excitement. Before heading out, Antonia exchanged messages with her father, who urged her to be careful around strangers. She reassured him, saying that caution was one of her strongest qualities. Martin Perdenas was questioned multiple times by law enforcement. He denied any wrongdoing involving Antonia, claiming their interactions were consensual and denying any involvement in her tragic fate. However, detectives saw things differently, armed with their own perspective and evidence. The investigation revealed that Martin left Temuco around noon on September 17th. Along with friends, they planned to return the following day. Upon arriving, they held a party at a rented house. The night was filled with conversation, laughter, and plenty of alcohol. At the same time, Antonia and Consuela were getting ready and headed to Black Room. At the club, they ordered a table, food, and drinks. The friends had a great time chatting and dancing throughout the night. It was at this venue that Antonia and Martin unexpectedly crossed paths again. Their chance reunion brought excitement, and they spent much of the evening together, dancing and talking. It was clear that there was a mutual fondness between them. Though Antonia occasionally left to check on Consuela and interact with the male friends they traveled with, she moved between bars, not realizing how much alcohol she was consuming, likely because of the long trip and having an empty stomach, something she usually avoided. Around 5 a.m., Consuela found Antonia happily chatting with a mutual friend named Emilio. At that point, Consuela told her it was time to leave, but Antonia, feeling good and wanting to continue the fun, refused. Her friend advised her to stop drinking and reconsider, but Antonia was firm in her decision to stay at the club while Consuela left. Martin had exploited Antonia against her will, and she felt powerless to stop it. Her memories of the incident were foggy, but one thing stood out clearly: she knew he had wronged her. This took place when they went upstairs afterward. He left her alone and vanished. When Jose and Consuela heard what happened, they urged Antonia to go to the police and seek justice. But Antonia refused. She was terrified that her parents and the public would find out. So she chose to quietly bear the trauma and attempt to heal on her own. She made them promise to keep the incident a secret. During this emotional conversation, Antonia received a message from her father asking how she was and jokingly checking if she had been drinking too much to avoid raising suspicion. She tried to respond in her usual cheerful way, though this only made her internal pain more evident. The following day, Antonia confronted Martin, but he was dismissive and arrogant. He insisted that everything between them had been consensual. It was then that Antonia realized she would never get the truth or an apology from him. She understood that moving on was her only option. Later, during the court hearing, psychotherapists explained that Antonia was suffering from intimacy trauma syndrome, a condition that affects physical, emotional, cognitive, and social behavior. It can emerge right after the incident or even months or years later. Antonia was in the midst of an acute phase, battling overwhelming distress. She couldn't shake off the feelings of anxiety, confusion, and emotional swings, alternating between hysteria and uncontrollable crying. She likely felt an intense urge to cleanse herself, often experiencing bouts of nausea or vomiting. For 3 weeks, Antonia kept her pain to herself, pretending everything was normal. A childhood friend later admitted she hadn't noticed anything unusual, but her classmates saw the signs. They couldn't ignore her memory lapses and disorganization, both common symptoms of the trauma she was enduring. One classmate even noted her declining academic performance, something entirely out of character for such a diligent student. When asked about the cause, Antonia blamed poor health. It's important to mention that many witnesses came to her defense during the trial. Friends, acquaintances, and classmates spoke on her behalf. But what caused her to make that fateful decision? Perhaps Antonia might have sought professional help in time and survived, had it not been for a series of events. Somehow, Antonia's terrible secret was leaked to her ex-boyfriend. But the way it reached him was exaggerated and distorted. He immediately confronted her, but Antonia insisted that she wasn't at fault. The information he had was blown out of proportion, yet Rodrigo didn't believe her. The day before the incident, Martin called Antonia. The details of their conversation remain unclear, but it's possible he made threats. The next day, Antonia sent a farewell message to her boyfriend and shared a childhood video in her family's group. In the video, Antonia was dancing and laughing, a reminder of how much she missed her former self. She knew she couldn't go back to the life, thoughts, and actions she once knew. When Alejandro found the courage to share his daughter's story with the nation, it struck a chord with the public. Antonia's name began appearing on posters, in social media hashtags, and even on building walls. Within a week, several women came forward with similar allegations against Martin Pridnes, and 6 new charges were filed, spanning incidents from 2010 to 2019. It became clear that Martin was a serial offender, and he was taken into custody. At the same time, Martin's family filed a petition to protect their personal information, which had been leaked online. They claimed that their right to privacy was violated, citing numerous insults, threats, and false information circulating on the internet. The Pridnes family even suspected that the Barra family was behind the leaks. On June 12, 2020, the Temuco court granted their request and ordered Antonia's family to stop sharing information about Martin's family on social media and to avoid making damaging posts. This decision sparked public outrage, with many Chileans feeling that it was an attempt to shield Martin from accountability. On July 21, 2020, the Barra family filed an appeal with the Supreme Court, but it was denied. Later that month, Martin's lawyer requested additional protective measures for his client. Shortly after, Martin was officially charged with multiple assaults, and public anger continued to grow. The investigation into what became known as the Antonia case turned into a symbol of justice for victims of violence in Chile. Many women, some after years of silence, began speaking out about their own experiences. Then, on July 22nd, an unexpected event unfolded. The court changed Martin's detention to house arrest. Martin Pridnes was effectively set free, but the judge clarified that this was not a reflection of the final punishment he could face. At the same time, the prosecutor charged him with 5 instances of misconduct, though the court only acknowledged 2. This sparked a wave of massive protest, with thousands taking to the streets, outraged by the court's decision to halt investigations on certain charges and place Martin under house arrest. The public outcry led authorities to take action. They submitted a request to the appeals court, which responded swiftly by revoking Martin's house arrest and taking him back into custody. In a separate ruling, the same court removed the statute of limitations for 2 cases of intimate violence. During this time, Alejandro Barra, with the support of feminist organizations, worked on drafting a bill that would introduce stricter punishments for such crimes. Alejandro stressed the importance of stepping in when a woman is seen being led away by a man, especially if she's intoxicated. He emphasized that this state makes a woman vulnerable to becoming a victim. The investigation into Martin's actions continued. In February 2021, his phone was discovered by the police. A forensic analysis revealed disturbing evidence, including photos where Martin displayed women's underwear as trophies, indicating he took pride in his conquests. The police report was nearly 400 pages long, filled with statements from victims, witnesses, and people who had known both Martin and Antonia since childhood. One of Martin's former teachers described him as a smart, cheerful child, but noted he had an unusual interest in topics related to intimacy. Several women recalled that when they were children, Martin had touched them inappropriately. At the time, it was dismissed because they were all so young. On June 14, 2022, the criminal court in Temuco began its hearings, which were expected to last over a month. During this period, the prosecution presented a wide array of evidence, including expert testimonies and witness statements. Video footage was also revealed, showing that Antonia was not in control of the situation. On August 26th, Martin was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his crimes, specifically for acts of intimate aggression and violence. However, on December 29th, the Supreme Court accepted an appeal from the defense, disagreeing with the initial verdict and ordering a retrial for spring 2023. Despite the legal setbacks, the efforts of the Barra family began to bear fruit. Antonia's law was introduced, strengthening legislation to ensure that anyone whose violent actions lead a victim to take their own life would face inevitable imprisonment. On March 16th, Martin Pridnes' legal team resigned, and his case was handed over to public defense. Finally, on April 24th, 2024, the second trial began, covering 5 cases of violence and 2 cases of sexual assault. During this time, Pradnias chose not to remain silent and explained his actions, claiming that he was under the influence of severe alcohol intoxication. The prosecutor responded by pointing out that by drinking with these women, he had made them vulnerable. On July 7, 2023, Pradnias was found guilty. The federal prosecution sought a sentence of 41 years in prison. However, on July 28, 2023, 31-year-old Martin Pradnias was sentenced to 17 years in prison for 7 offenses of sexual nature against 6 victims. With the time already served in custody, he would spend another 14 years behind bars. Antonia Barra's tragedy brought to light a dangerous criminal. It's uncertain how many more women could have fallen victim to his actions. The fine line between harassment and flirtation can be crossed in a moment, and it's something no one is truly prepared for, yet the societal changes that followed have shifted how victims of violence are viewed. Now, the risks of unchecked desires and the inability to control one's actions are widely understood. The body and soul of another person are as delicate as a crystal vase, precious and inviolable. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. More shocking stories await you.